5 years ago, I decided to dedicate my life to helping achieve freedom for our animal kin, to building a kinder, more beautiful world for all, humans, other animals, and the planet. I wanted to live my life aligned with the values of love and of freedom and of non-violence, and not those of disconnection, domination, and destruction that our current culture is based on. I'm now lucky enough to volunteer my time full-time with Animal Think Tank, an organisation that is building a mass social movement for animal freedom in the UK. But my journey was not straightforward, like I'm sure many of our journeys have not been. I spent many years working in international development, seeking to reduce poverty and food insecurity in the global south. Much of my work focused on how farming fishes could reduce poverty. And even after I'd gone vegan, I carried on this work and I rationalised to myself that the poor farmers that I was trying to help didn't have the privilege I had to stop eating other animals. And yet I felt increasingly uncomfortable. One evening in 2016, during a trip to Sierra Leone on a project to introduce fish farming to rural communities, I made a decision that changed the direction of my life. As I sat with my colleagues, discussing poverty over an expensive meal in a 5-star hotel, the cliché of a development worker, might I add, I realised that I couldn't do this anymore. I realised that my life was no longer aligned with my values, and I realised that the development industry, which in a deeply colonial way was spreading animal farming and fishing in the name of development, was a world I no longer wanted any part of. So that day I decided to end my career. And when I look back at my previous life, I wonder if I would have come to this decision sooner if the animals that I was helping poor farmers to exploit were cows or pigs rather than fishes. After all, it's easy to focus on the cute animals who seem more like us. And it's easy to forget fishes when we are far from their habitats, when we can't understand their facial expressions, and when we cannot hear their screams. And yet, it is much harder to forget fishes when we remember that globally we kill between 1 to 3 trillion of them every year for food. It is much harder to forget fishes when we consider that an estimated 80% of all farmed animals on the planet are fishes. And it is much harder to forget fishes when we acknowledge the mounting scientific evidence that they are sentient beings with rich inner lives, that they form relationships with those around them, and that they have a desire to live and be free just like us. As we stand outside the Marine Stewardship Council, let's also not forget that the fishing industry is the leading cause of destruction of our oceans. It's responsible for massively declining fish populations and the majority of plastic pollution in our oceans. A shocking 1 in 4 marine animals caught, including turtles and dolphins and whales and sharks, are caught accidentally and discarded as so-called waste. And while 70% of fisheries are either fished to their limit or overfished in inverted commas, we know that when we're talking about individuals who want to live, any amount of fishing is overfishing. This is something that the Marine Stewardship Council, which views marine animals as resources to exploit rather than sentient beings who have the right to live free from harm, has no interest in understanding. Their language of fish stocks, marine resources, unwanted catch, reveal so clearly their worldview of domination. This worldview and our destructive and disconnected relationship with the natural world that it has produced is at the root of so many of the multiple interconnected crises that we are facing. When I look back at my previous life, I also wish that I'd realized sooner that veganism and individual lifestyle changes alone, while absolutely necessary and important, are not enough to challenge the toxic structures that make animal exploitation possible in the first place. They are not enough for the rapid, transformative change we need, and more importantly, that the animals need. While veganism has risen hugely in the last 5 years, the number of animals that we kill for so-called food in the UK and globally is still rising. I used to think that veganism was a personal choice. Now I believe animal freedom is an issue of social justice, a movement which must centre and act in solidarity with the animals with whom we fight, not one which centres humans and our lifestyle choices. When pigs refuse to go down slaughterhouse chutes, when cows fight back against those who steal their babies, when fishes struggle and gasp for breath when they are pulled from the water, and when beagle puppies cry from inside the vans transporting them to their torture and deaths inside animal testing facilities, as they do when they leave MBR Acres factory puppy farm, which, by the way, Camp Beagle will shut down. Their voices are clear. Their resistance is clear. The injustice is clear. If we want to end the moral atrocity of what we do to our animal kin, if we want to build a kinder, more beautiful world, a world where slaughterhouses no longer exist, a world where lab cages are empty, where there are only sanctuaries, not zoos, shelters, not breeders, plant leather, not animal skins, we need to build power. And I don't mean consumer power. We cannot buy our way to a better world. I'm talking about social and political power. Successful social movements won because ordinary people like me and like you changed public opinion and forced politicians to take a stand. They did this by acting together to push their issue out into the public consciousness through disruption, through civil disobedience, through non-violent direct action. We need to do this through sustained and escalating campaigns which are winnable, which create the momentum for further success and inspire more and more people to join us. Marching for one day a year, as wonderful as this is, don't get me wrong, will not get us to the better world that we all long for and that the animals deserve. We need to build people-powered campaigns to build a movement that is powerful enough to demand and win real change. To do this, we need action of all kinds. We need protest and direct actions like the brilliant Camp Beagle. Thank you. We need strategic litigation like the audacious scrap factory farming legal challenge. We need direct action through dedicated groups like the Hunt Sabs, stop the cull, meet the victims. And we need mass civil disobedience through disruptive social movement organisations like Animal Rebellion. But it's not enough. All of us here need to step up and do more. We all have our unique contributions to make. Just imagine what we could achieve if we could harness the energy, the passion, and the love of the thousands of us here today and focus it on sustained, direct action campaigns. We would be unstoppable. The most common way that we give our power away is by thinking that we don't have any. That is what society has conditioned us to think. But just look around. People have the power. I can feel it, and I'm sure some of you can feel it too.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yes, and the history of successful social movements shows us that this is true. So, I invite every single one of you here today, myself included, to commit to standing in true solidarity with our animal kin, to step into our power, to take action, and to demand real change with love in our hearts and fire in our bellies. Only then will we be able to build the kinder, more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Thank you.